All right, welcome back. We are COMP397 in the winter 2022 semester at Centennial, and it's week 2, part 2 of our broadcast and recording and session. I'm just going to copy the link for YouTube here and put it on our course shell. So I'm just going to go here so that way, worst case scenario, you guys can watch this as well. So let's add that in. And by the way, I'm really hoping you should be able to see this. And did I not put part 2? That's terrible. It should say part 2. That's the title. I'll modify that online by editing this. This should say part 2. Before I forget. Right. Okay, so part 2. This is our part 2 of our session. We did part 1 over here, right? So we're going to bring that up here. So if you need closed captioning support, all that stuff, this will handle the second part of our lab, which is in here. Now we're going to be really quick on this one. So again, I'm going to go into week 2 and bring that one up and then continue with what we're doing. So in the last recording, what we did was we created a very simple tile set in Blender, very super simple. There's so many more things we can do here. We're able to make it so that we have 2 materials we're using. One of them, when we think about materials, is the color, which is kind of a concrete material, as well as we can see clearly that there is a cobblestone material that's down here. Right, there it is. There's a cobblestone. The cobblestone look pretty flat though, right? They're like really super flat. Let's see if we can do the trick we did last time, which is making our texture. The texture we're using for gravel cobble, let's copy it or duplicate it. Again, duplicate is Control D. And then what we can do is we can take that texture that we have, that's a duplicate, and make it _N for normal map. We can choose that. And when I go to the material, right, for the gravel cobble material, right here it is, we can drag and drop that texture we just made, we just copied, into the normal map slot right here. So we just drag and drop it in there. And then you can see it's pretty dark, right? So we want to try and bring this value down something like 0.5 or lower. So it kind of gives a little bit of false texture for the normal map. It's not really that great. And that's why I say that sometimes what you want to try and do is choose the right shader. We'll talk about this another day too, but if you choose Autodesk Interactive as a shader object, sometimes it's closer to what we want, okay? Closer to what we want compared to what it was before, okay? And let's fix that. So it's a normal map, there we go. So we're using an Autodesk Interactive. You can see that there's a little bit of artifacts when you look at the thing from this side. And that artifact means that we're using a high value that's way too high. So we can use something like 0.1 or 0.2. And that might be a better value when there's less artifacts. So 0.2 might be working okay. And it gives us the effect that we want. It looks like it's more of a texture, a normal map, but there isn't really. There's also this weird problem with the shadows and all that kind of stuff. And this is because of how the material is that we've got here for our object. So the object, the reason why it's not shadowing properly and all that kind of stuff is kind of just the graphic settings that we've got going in the main camera. So the main camera right now, you can see that we can see the near plane is 0.3 and the far plane is 1000. This is okay with the main camera. We need to fix this as well, right? And then each of the tiles, if you look at the tile, you can see that the tile has a mesh renderer and it says cast shadows on, receive shadows on. And there's also additional settings and probes and all that kind of stuff. And we're not going to mess with this right now. It has a mesh collider. That's what it has. So the mesh collider is the thing that's making it work the way it's working, right? And we're going to see what it looks like to drop an object in here. So as if we're going to make something that's in here. So in order for us to make a character controller, I'm going to choose a space, let's say on the corner somewhere on the outside of the tiles that has no walls. And I'm going to kind of, the first thing I want to do with my character controller, and by the way, notice all these tiles here, they're kind of out in the open. Let's put them inside of a parent. And to do that, you can select all the tiles, like so, and then right-click them and go to Create Empty Parent. And then you can create that parent, we'll call that tiles. And then we can just like hide that whole thing away. So we don't care about the tiles, we just have them kind of hidden. The main camera right now is kind of a camera on its own, and we want to make the main camera part of the character controller. So in order for us to construct a character controller with the time that we have, I want you to picture what we're going to do. There's going to be the head, and there's going to be a body eventually, right? And the camera itself is going to be at the top of the head, and at the bottom, you're going to see a body, which is kind of like a cylinder. So let's add a cylinder. So we're going to make a 3D object cylinder. And what I want is to put that cylinder in the right spot. Let's put it at 0, 0, 0. Let's reset it. And then drag it over so we can see where it comes in. And this is our cylinder. And it's kind of sunk in half in the ground. There it is. I want to kind of pull the cylinder out so it's kind of floating above the ground. Like so. Okay, there's our cylinder. And that's us. That's our going to be our body. It's 2 meters high. We can make it less high for now, but for now it's going to be what that is. And you can see that when I modify this one, the thing that changes is the y-axis, right? So if I go to 1, you can see that that is exactly on the ground. 1. And I'm at just some space that's right here. And you can see that I've got a shadow and everything else. Let's kill the shadow because the shadow doesn't make any sense for our body. We don't want to see a shadow. So let's not cast shadows. No shadows. However, for now, do I want to receive shadows? And the answer is I don't want to receive shadows either. So it's going to be kind of like not illuminated. I want to give myself a material. So I'm going to go to Material. I want to create a new material. Regular material, and let's call this the player material for now. And when we create the player material, the only thing I care about is that it's kind of green for now, because we're not going to see it later. And I want to take that player material and just drag and drop it onto our cylinder. So it looks like this. And this is kind of like our blocking out the player, right? And let's change the name of the cylinder to player. Okay, there we are. And what I want to do with the cylinder is I just want to be able to move it around very, very simply, right? That's all I want to do right now, okay? And the first thing I want to do with the cylinder is add a script. So I'm going to go to Scripts, and I want to go into here, right? Where it says, let's continue. Let's do one more thing. The main camera right now, where it is, let us put the main camera inside of the player object right now. Okay, here's the main camera. So player and the main camera is in the player. And let's reset it. So we're going to say reset. So the camera's kind of looking this way and it's inside the player. I'm going to kind of move up. So just to show you what the camera looks like, the camera's inside the player. Right? And one thing to note is kind of look at it from the side so you can see it. So I want to kind of move it up so that the camera, if you notice the height, if I move it too high up, the y-axis, it'll peek out like this, right? So it's got to be kind of just below the head of the character, right there. And it seems to be at something like 0.73. Let's just make it 0.7, just to be even. Problem with this camera is it's going to not be able to see because this thing is going to block it, right? So one thing to note is we don't want the camera to see itself. All right, so this is the player, and we can tag it as a player. We can do that. And we can change its layer. We can add a layer for the player, and we can say that the player's layer is called the player. So again, under player, we can go to layer and add a new layer, right? And I made a new layer called player. And then you have to apply it to just this thing itself. So just that one, we say player. It's going to ask you, do you want to apply to everything? And I want to say, no, just this object. Okay, so just the player object. And then the camera, what you can do is, instead of culling mask everything, you can say everything but the player. So it doesn't see the player object at all. It's invisible. We're just going to use the player eventually just for our purposes. All right, so now when we actually look at the game sees what the player sees, right? And if I run it, right, it doesn't do much, but let's bring the player, let's bring the game down here. And if I was to march things around, you can see if I move my player, undo. If I move my player around, right, then the camera moves around too. So the player will move and the camera will move, right? That's how it's going to work. Okay? So kind of a simple way of doing stuff. So there's two parts, right? There's two parts to the player, right? And the one part of the player is the body of the player. Okay, that's the one thing that you want to see, the body of the player. And the second part of the player is you know, the head or the camera of the player. So that's kind of the thing that we want to do, right? The body and the head, right? And we want to create almost like two controllers. One is the camera controller, and the other one is the player controller, right? That's what we want to do. So let's set up the camera controller first. So, and the camera controller will be on the camera itself, not on the player. So on the main camera, we want to make a new script. You guys, Maria, you're unmuted by accident, I think. Let's make a brand new thing called a camera controller. Here's my camera controller. Okay. And then what I want to do is I want to double click on the camera controller, bring up Visual Studio. And I want to start typing the code, okay? Camera control is not that complex, but we want to talk about how it works. So again, I want to have a public value called, let's call it mouse sensitivity, because we're going to do mouse look with the player. Mouse sensitivity, okay? And we're going to say that we're going to start off with a mouse sensitivity of 1,000, just to see what that looks like, okay? And we're going to do a public transform, which is my player body. We're going to get an access to the player body as well. So remember, the player head is the camera. The player body is the player body. Okay, we're going to get access to that. And I also want to have a private method, a private float called something like, I don't know, X rotation. Okay, we're going to set that to 0. I also want to set the lock state. So whenever I click in my game, I want the lock state to be locked. So cursor dot lock state is equal to cursor lock state locked. And what that does is when I'm running my game, right, that the cursor disappears. So I don't want to see my cursor, otherwise it's going to mess me up. Okay. And then let's just start typing here. We can change this later, but I want a float for my mouse X, which is going to be equal to input.getAccess. And I want to make this mouse X, that's the axis that I want to get access to. And I want to multiply that by mouse sensitivity. And I want to do the same thing for mouse Y. So I'm going to say, hey, let's get an input from my get access, and it's going to be mouse Y, and multiply that by mouse sensitivity. What I want is that X rotation now to be equal to negative mouse Y, because of the orientation of our, when I move one way, it's going to be the other way. So if I move up and down, that's Y, right? I want to rotate back. So it's almost like an inverse look kind of thing. And then I want to say that the X rotation is equal to, we'll say a mathf clamp I want it clamped. Clamping does between one rotation and another. I want to make it so that the X rotation is clamped to from negative 90 to 90. So I can't look like all over the place, although that would be really bad. All right. I'll kind of loop over. I'll make you sick when you're looking, right? And then I want to take my transform.local rotation. Here's my local rotation. And I want to make that a quaternion Euler. So I want to use a quaternion Euler, and I want to get that X rotation, and then I want to start it at 0, 0. So I want to start my X rotation at 0, 0. So in other words, the X axis is going to rotate, right? But my Y and Z are going to stay the same. Okay, so that's what that is going to do. But what I want is when I choose my my mouse, so this is on the Y-axis, so to speak, right? And what I want is the player body, the transform for the player body. I want it to rotate across vector 3 up, which is the axis that I want to rotate across, so across the Y-axis, and multiply by mouse X. So again, this doesn't seem to be apparent right now. Let's see how this works, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So this is the first script, and I want to attach it to my object. Now here's a challenge with this, right? Because my mouse is also, or my camera is also attached to my body. When I rotate my head, I'm actually also rotating my camera, right? That's the thing to note, all right? So that's the thing that's happening. Even though I'm rotating my body, I'm also rotating my whole camera to the left and right. Let's see how this works. So first of all, let's attach it. So there's my camera controller, and I have my camera, and I want to drag and drop my camera controller so it's connected to my camera. And I want to take my player body, and I'm drag and drop that in here. And then let's run it and see what the heck it does, or if I'm crazy. So look at that. It's really super fast. Why? Because it's 1,000, right? It's 1,000. We can scale it. We can scale it back. So let's make it like 10. See what that looks like. Right? And see if that's not too fast. Right? Not bad, right? But we have an issue when it comes to going up and down. Take a look at that, right? So it's kind of like, I can rotate right and left now, right? No problem. But when it comes to going up and down, I got a problem. Are we close? We're pretty close, right? Because it kind of does this no problem, but up and down, that's a problem. Maybe you can help me out with the second part. What's the problem with rotating up and down? What's the issue that you can see with the script? Mouse sensitivity is the one we want to go. X rotation is where we're going, right? And X rotation is equal to minus mouse Y, but what we want to say is actually minus equal to mouse Y. That's what we want. And let's try this. That was a bit of a typo. Sorry, I know you probably couldn't have found that so easily, but I figured it out because I looked at my script and I was like, wait, that doesn't seem right. And let's try it again. Let's save the scene and let's run that again and see if I got mouse look happening. Oh, that's much better. Take a look. So I can actually have everything working out okay, right? Look at that. How nice it is. What are your thoughts, guys? Not bad? Okay. So that's the first step. First step is, can I move around? Or can I look around? So mouse look is done. Let's put this up on GitHub. So Control S, File, Save project. And let's use something else to put it up on GitHub this time instead of, instead of using Gitkraken. So Gitkraken's great, but the problem with Gitkraken is it doesn't allow you to see or open up, when in the free version, it doesn't allow you to look at, private repositories or create even private repositories for the first time. Won't even let you look at them afterwards, right? So one thing you can do is you can grab another, which I talked about with the people on Friday, another program called GitHub Desktop. So If you go to desktop.github.com, you can download desktop.github.com for Windows. It'll ask you to download it and configure it. It's not that difficult to do. I've already done it, and if I look at GitHub Desktop, is what it's called, it'll kind of show up and look like this. And what I want to do is I want to add an existing repository to my repository path, which is I want to choose COMP397, section 2, winter 2022, and press select folder. And then add that repository so that I can manage it. It's one thing to note is it's super no frills. Okay, so this is not like git cracking, but it goes around, it avoids the problems that we have with the private repository problem, right? So we can look and see what the what's happening, right? We can look and see what's happening with our changes. These are all the changes we made. You can see that we did all this. And all you need to do is make a summary of the changes. We'll say added mouse look, right? That's what we kind of did, right? Commit to main, and then just push. And then it says, okay, some common reasons include you're not logged in to see your files. And we can look at our options and see what that is. You can see that clearly I'm not signed in, right? And so that's what it looks like. So if I go to push origin, if it gives you an error, and if you open your options, you can see that this is me, I'm signed out, right, and whatever. And this is where I'd have to sign back in, right? As an example, here's my enterprise address for signing in, and it says HTTPS blah, blah, blah. It's really HTTPS:// github.com/. This is the first time I've had this problem. Siliopoulos, that's me. That is weird, guys. It totally worked fine before, and it's not working now. That's amazing. Well, and this is the other thing you can do. You can go back to Git Kraken. I had all kinds of lovely problems with this before. Oh, wow, it was so crazy. I was able to do this no problem before. I'll fix myself later, and I'll put a video up to show you how to do that. But for now, wow, that's a major failure. I love coding live. I love coding live. That's what happens. Yeah, so yeah, we want to push. We're just going to click push, and we're going to be good to go. Yay! And I'll fix the problem. It's just an authentication issue with my GitHub Desktop, which was working fine before. I don't understand. But anyways, we can add mouse look, however you do it, whether you use Git Kraken, source tree, command line, whatever. And Mike says you can get the Pro package from GitHub Education for Students, which includes Git Kraken Pro features. There you go. And that's not a bad idea. All right, excellent. So wonderful. I'm able to push. Let's open up our Unity and continue. So we've been able to do. We've been able to move our player around from a look perspective. So we can move around, and our player behavior seems to be, or our camera seems to be okay. Okay, so that's the one thing we want to do. The next piece is actually changing our player behavior itself so that it allows us to, move our player around. Okay. So there's a couple things that we can do to make our job a little easier for today. We're going to make our own character controller later, but for now we're going to use something called a character controller, right? So in our player, we can add another component, and see the capsule collider we're going to remove for now. Let's remove it. Sorry about that, guys. I know you guys are faster than I am. I'm going to add in, so I remove the character controller, and I want, the capsule collider, and I want to use a character controller. And now this is a bit of a hack. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Okay, and the reason why this is a hack is because it includes both a rigid body and a collider. Okay, that's what it does. So again, if I was to press play for now, right, even though I can move around, I'm not sinking through the floor, right? That's the most important piece. So I don't need a rigid body here at all. The rigid body kind of gets included in this thing altogether. Okay, so now that I have a character controller here instead of a collider, right, which is what we don't need for this one. This is again a hack. We're gonna make our own later, but for now we just want to make it work, right? So because we're going to time out soon, I want to go into scripts and I want to make a brand new character or the player behavior script. So again, new C# script. We're going to call this player behavior. Here's our player behavior. And I'll wait till Unity does its business like this. And then I will, just before I go into the scripts, I'm going to drag and drop player behavior on top of my player and then double click on my player behavior to code it. It's not a big script, but it's going to be a bit of coding. So let's talk about it a little bit. So there's going to be some sections. And one thing we can do with this thing is we want to get a reference to the character controller itself. Character controller is a special component that Unity gives us to get going with for prototyping. I want to add a header component that basically talks about movement. We're going to get some information about movement and we're going to set some stuff up. So public float max speed, we're going to say that's going to be equal to 10.0f. And we're also going to add in, that's the maximum speed of the character controller, public float gravity, that's going to be equal to -30. That's going to be the gravity that we're going to create for ourselves. We're going to make our own gravity instead of using a rigid body. Public float jump height, that's going to be equal to a number we want. So let's say 3 meters. We can make it 4 meters if you want, so we can jump up. And a public vector 3 of velocity. Okay, so public vector 3 is called velocity. In our other properties we're going to have ground detection, right? And again, don't worry about everything. We will go through details with this next week. I just want to get you guys moving so you can start prototyping with your thing. We're going to use a ground check, a public transform ground check that we're going to kind of pull in, as well as a public float ground radius, right? There's our ground radius, which we're going to say that's 0.5f. And what that means is it's going to have a little, we're going to use a sphere to determine when we're on the ground, and a public layer mask, which is going to be called the ground mask. We're going to decide this in a second. And a public bool that's going to determine if we're grounded or not. Next, we're going to also talk about a I think this is a good place. I think we can stop with our properties there. We can do other stuff later. We're not going to do that. All right, next, what I want to do next is start. So in my start, I want to say that my controller is equal to my get components character controller. So this one. And this gets a reference of my character controller component that I added in Unity inside here. So that's the first thing. So now I have access to my controller. And then what I want to do is I want to say, well, is grounded is equal to a physics dot check sphere. So we're going to do a sphere, almost like a sphere collider equivalent, where I want to take my ground check dot position and my ground radius, which I decided is going to be like 0.5, right? And I'm going to use my ground mask to say that which things I want to collide with. And an if is grounded and the velocity, my velocity on the y-axis is less than 0. So I'm not moving, basically up and down. I'm not jumping. If I'm not jumping, then my velocity on the y-axis is equal to a negative 2.05. And I'll talk about what that means. So if I'm grounded and my velocity is less than 0. Talk about this in a second. And then I'm going to have my float x, which is input.getAxis, and I want to take the horizontal input, right? And I want to do the same thing for, this is all repeat from last semester, guys. On the z-axis this time, I'll say that the input.getAxis vertical. So I'm going to take my vertical buttons. I'm going to go on the z-axis, and then I'm going to say a vector3 move is equal to transform.right, right, multiplied by x, multiplied by a transform.forward, multiplied by z. And what this is going to do for us, let's add that in. How about that? What this is going to do for us is it's going to say, okay, so our move is you're going to do the right. Transform right is we're looking to the right, right, as an example. Whatever the right side of me is, multiplied by x, I'm getting an input from -1 to 1, right? So I'm either moving right or left. That's what this does. Plus transform forward, which is what I'm looking forward when my camera's looking forward, multiplied by z, which is -1 to 1. So that'll give my movement. That's my movement vector, which is kind of a neat, tricky way of getting it done. And then I want to say my controller.move, that's a special method that's part of my controller only, move times max speed, right, multiplied by time.delta time. So I'm scaling it so it's not spamming. That's what that's doing. And if my input.get button, we're going to say jump. If I click the jump button, which is either the my spacebar or the button on the controller, then I will, once I've done this, I know that I'm jumping, and I can say that my velocity, right, dot y is equal to mathf dot square root, and this is where I want to try and figure out the distance for the jump height minus 2.0f multiplied by the gravity that we want, right, minus 30, right? And then we're going to make, that's going to be the distance of the velocity on the y-axis. Now we haven't applied the velocity, we're just calculating the velocity based on the jump height that I want to go, which right now looks like 3 meters. We want to move 3 meters high times -0.2f times gravity, which is gravity is -30. So it's going to be like whatever that's the force that we're going to use in the y-axis. All right. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say that the velocity dot y, we're going to add in gravity and then multiply by time dot delta time. Okay, so that's how that's going to be. And then we're going to controller dot move the velocity multiplied by time dot delta time. Okay? And if input, actually that's good enough. I think that's probably going to be good for our input system for now. I think we'll probably be good. I was going to do more, but I think that's going to be weird. Let's also do a draw gizmo so we can see the sphere. So we're going to say void on draw gizmos, right? And what we're going to do with the on draw gizmos is a special function that's part of Unity where we can see the gizmos.color is going to be the color.white. We'll make it white. And we'll say that gizmos.draw wire sphere, which draws a wireframe sphere, where we start off at the ground check place, position, and the ground radius. So that's how wide it's going to be. Now we don't have the ground position. We're going to make one for a second, which is just going to be a transform, an empty game object that's going to be sitting inside of our character controller. Okay, and that's the script. What I'm going to do, because I know I went fast, is I'm going to just show you this right now. Are you good with this? This is the script that we need for the stuff that we're doing. Let me know when I can move on. If I can move on, then please check mark. If I can't move on, if you need me to wait for a second, I won't move on yet. We're almost done. X. Shamar, are you totally lost, X, or is it you need me to wait? You can come on the mic and tell me too. Just catching up. Okay, awesome. Mitt is there. Tatiana, you're good. Joshua, you're good. We're not quite done yet. We're getting there. Can you quickly look at the start method? Yes, the only thing in the start method, Ben, is controller is equal to get component character control. Remember we added that character controller component? All it's doing is getting a reference to the character controller here. Okay, that's all it is. So controller is equal to get component character controller. All right, are we good? Can I move on? Wei Hao says, so you don't know a lot of the coding part. I think I feel I need to go to review it again. It's okay. Don't worry about it. This is all new for everybody. Wei Hao. Okay, don't worry about it. I will explain everything, over the course of days. We're going to go through it and I'll explain everything. Controller is grounded. Because we're making our own is grounded check. So that's why. But yes, we could do that. Okay, let me show you how this looks now on the other side. Had controller get component instead of, okay, that's good. All right, let's do this next. So now that I've got this is the first part, but what I need to enable all this stuff in player behavior is inside of Unity, we need an empty object that's sitting inside the player. So this is going to be the ground check transform. So I'm going to add a new empty object. We're going to call this ground check. Yeah, that's what it is. And the new empty object, we're going to move this down. And I'm also going to color it a different color. That's what it's going to be. So see next to the empty object, when we make an empty object, you can see that over here, we can assign a color to it. Let's make it red. All right, so we can see that color. Let's make it a diamond. There it is. And it's pretty low. And what we want to do with this ground check is when it's going to draw. The reason why I'm getting a null reference here is because it's trying to draw a gizmo that doesn't exist. So in the player itself, notice I have some values. One thing that's missing is the ground check transform, which I just added in. Let's just drag and drop this into here. And now we're getting a circle. And this circle, if you notice what it looks like, it's inside of the cylinder, and let's not even see the cylinder. Let's make it so that the cylinder is invisible. All right, so the way to do that is in the mesh renderer, let's just turn the mesh renderer off like so. So we don't have to see the mesh renderer. The cylinder was just there for us to get a sense of it. Now notice that that is a little bit too low, and there is a cylinder that's a green cylinder here. I don't know if you guys can see that. When I turn off the mesh renderer, you can see the cylinder. That cylinder is the character controller. All right, so if I go to ground check, I can actually move that up a little bit so that it's barely touching the ground. Something like that. Okay, my value seems to be like something like minus 0.5. Something like that. Okay, and we may have to change that a little bit later. But if I look at the player, you can see that the player has a couple of gizmos on. One of them is the cylinder, the capsule that's representative of the player itself. And I think we're almost ready to go, right? So let's try and run it and see if we get an error. See what happens. All right, so now I should be able to move forward, look around, depending on where I'm looking, I should be able to look around. And if I jump, right? So what happens if I jump? So that the jumping is weird. It seems as if the player controller is not grounded. So we can see how that is. So notice my is grounded is not working. Why? Here's why. Because my ground mask is 0. My ground mask is not working. And when my ground mask is not working, I can't jump. Okay, so let's assign a ground mask to my tiles. So my tiles right now, you can see that the default layer, there's no layer. Let's add a new layer, and we'll call this the ground. There's the ground layer. And then what I can do with each of my tiles, I can select them all, and I can change the layer to ground for all my tiles. Pretty cool. Here's my tiles. Nice. And once I've changed my those to ground, then I can change my my player so that the ground layer mask, my ground mask, is also ground. So that's the only thing that I'm gonna jump on. So if I run it again, now it should somehow function. So let's see what I'm looking at, and what the heck is happening? It's like I've lost the ability for me to see. Let's undo that. Let's undo those changes. What happened here? So that, and that override. It's my camera I'm looking at. Camera's a default layer, and my ground check is there. That's wacky. That's totally wacky, right? So, it's almost like I lost the camera there for a second. Did you guys see that happen? It's not even, my camera's not even reporting anymore. Take a look. It's like it's looking at it. It's not even seeing the player. I wonder why that is. Oh, I can't see the ground. Haha, there it is. Let's do that again. All right, so yeah, so now it should work. So now it should be able to work. And if I jump, if I press the jump button, then we might be able to do it. So it says, okay, it needs to have ground layer, add controller, get ops, camera culling mask needs to have ground layer. Okay, I have the ground layer, but what is happening with my ground check? Because ground check is not functioning somehow. So is ground check. No problem, Weihao. I will continue recording. I'll fix it and it'll be finished. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So what else do you think is the problem? So if I run it, we're almost there, guys. Like we're very, very close, right? So why are we not grounded? I can tell you why. I think the ground check is too high. So remember that the player itself has a it's at the exact same position as this, so that it's touching. And what we want to do is we want to put the ground check slightly below, undo. We want to put the ground check itself slightly below the player so that it's going to hover a little bit, just a little bit. So I'm thinking like maybe minus 0.6. Minus 0.6. Something like that. Let's try that. So it's kind of extreme, but let's see how that works. And I want to be able to see the ground check working. Yeah, there it is. There's grounded. And now we should be able to jump. There we go. See, there it is. And so now we can see that's the way it is. We can run through, and the character controller is not terrible, as you can see. We can run through pretty quickly. Okay, and we got our little maze happening. Can't really clear the buildings, but we're pretty good. All right, so that is the way it works. And let's bring this up here. And we're good to go. Any questions around this at all? I know there's tons. But does anyone get what I did with the... So the ground check is actually lower than the capsule that's made from the player character controller. The character controller is a capsule that's 2 meters. And what I've done is I've put the ground check slightly below it. And that way it'll work. So it's going to hover a little bit off the ground. Questions around this? This is your character controller. And this is something you can use for now for your games. If you've got to move through, kind of your game world, and you want to inspect your game world, then you should be able to make it go. Does anyone did you guys make it work? How about that, guys? What are your thoughts? Is it working for you? Is it not working? Check mark if it's working, X if it's not. Why did remove the collider? The collider is built into the character controller. So the character controller itself has a capsule collider. Jerome says it's working. Tatiana is working. Anyone else? Molly's good. Okay, I'm getting some more people. Peter, Trung. I need about half. I wouldn't mind if there was a few more people. Just that way, you guys. Anyone having real issues understanding Maksud and Nandini is good. Okay, thank you for that, guys. So the reason why we did this is because I wanted to set up. Thank you. I wanted to set up an idea of a character controller, how it works. So we made the main camera that's linked to the player, and the ground check. Ground check is an empty object that basically it sprays a sphere cast. Sphere casting is using it's like a ray cast, but like a sphere collider. Below the character object, I've removed the mesh renderer, so it's there if you want to see it or not, but you don't have to have the mesh renderer walking around. And then you have the character controller that's invisible. So that's what did everything. I'm going to save this, file, save project, and then I'm going to put this up on GitHub again. So let's exit, and I'm going to go to GitKraken for now. And you can see that I've modified a couple files. I'm going to view changes, and I'm going to add my commit summary, which is going to be added or completed player behavior, completed character controller. Stage all changes, commit all five files, and we're good to go and push. Now, one last thing before we go, a couple things actually. One of them is the report. So how do you deal with this report? What do you do? So the way you use the report is you put your name and your last name and your student ID and the date you're submitting it. Again, you have until the end of the week to get it done, right? Joshua says, so for non-game students, there's been no prior instructions on how to use Unity in the program, yet you didn't go over UI at all, and there's UI implementation due to at the end of the way. So what exactly is the expectation here? Joshua, are you working with all non-game students? Is that what you're doing? You can come on the mic if you want. Your entire group. Okay, that's not good. Wow, that is unusual. I didn't expect that, right? Okay, so I think what I'm going to do then is direct you to. I got to try and catch you up sometime. Can you hold on? Can you stick around a little longer, or do you have to run? That's very, very relevant what you're asking. I don't want you guys to die with this stuff and not have a thing. You do have class after some. Okay, so you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make a decision and send a note out to everybody that talks about it. I may for your group, and can you send me an email please with that information? And then I'll send out a note that says that'll make a decision whether I give you guys an extension or something else, because I got to give you some stuff. Okay, I don't want you guys to have a problem. I want everything to work with you. I just didn't realize there's so many. All right, thanks, Joshua. All right, for the last part, for the lab, what you need to do for version control is this. So if you did everything right, you just highlight this part and then just press highlight. So let's say we did it version control properly. Character controller physics, looks like physics has been, and when I say rigid body is attached, that means the character controller has a rigid body and it's attached, which is true. And it's constrained so the player won't fall over. It's already built in. If you use the character controller that I gave you, it's going to be just fine. We're going to make this better over the course of days, right? An appropriate collider is attached to the player object. It is, because if you've attached the character controller, you're good to go. If you try to do this on your own and these things don't work, then you'll be in here somewhere. So if you follow it along, it's not a trick, but if you follow it along, then this is kind of like free marks. Character movement, player behavior script exposes all correct properties in the inspector. We talked about those. Player behavior script enables player to move and jump appropriately. And I think I showed you how to do that. All right, so that's this one. And then Blender maze tile creation, we made at least 2 maze tiles. We did this, right? And maze tile import to Unity, we did that. Okay, so we did that kind of stuff. And so if you followed along and with Unity maze level, we made this, which is pretty cool. So then if you did all this stuff, then you would get 30 out of 30. They're just marks for your stuff, and then you're good to go. Okay. Marco says, yes, my team is also non-game students. The entire team, Marco? Wow, that's crazy. That's unusual. All right. Well, we'll deal with it. We'll make it work, guys. If I have to do more tutorials and that stuff after this or whatever, I will do what I have to do to make sure you guys are good. Okay. Wait, what? Devont, your team as well? You're all non-gaming students? Come on. I can't believe it. Everybody on your team? Holy, I can't believe it. But anyways, that's how this works. I know there's some game students here because I saw Tatiana here and some other people, but wow, I can't believe that, guys. That's okay. I'm fine with it. We'll just have to be more. So that's what this little lab report is. Lab report basically says, hey, this is the stuff that I did. If you couldn't do all this stuff, or you couldn't follow along, or let's say you didn't attend class and you tried to do things on your own, as an example, and it didn't work, then you wouldn't get full marks. But really, this is just kind of a follow along. And if you did what I did, then full marks are okay. If something didn't work, then you get something in here or whatever if you couldn't fix it. All right, but typically with the stuff that I've given you, it should be just fine. So you took this, you submit it, and then in your video, which is going to be 1 to 3 minutes, so no screenshots this time, just a small video. And the video is like literally you pop the video on, you say, hi Tom, my name is, and here's my student ID. And you can see here I've got my lab and my master repo, check. My character controller is working, so you can see that when I'm using my character controller, my physics, I've attached the physics, and you can see I'm moving around. And I can jump, so those two things are handled in like 2 seconds. You're going to open up Unity to do that. You can see that I've created a maze tile in Blender. Here's Blender, and I have 2 tiles. Here's one, check on it. Here's the other, check on it. And I've imported them into Unity. You can see here I've got those 2 things imported, and you can see that I've created a little maze just like you. Okay, thanks Tom, take care, bye. And you're done. So, you're right, Jerome. And I think that when I said work with people you know, you should work with people you know, but I have to bring your capability up. So, and don't panic. We'll make it work. Okay. Again, it's every semester is slightly different. I expect that COMP397 students at some point will be all gaming students, and they keep on mixing it up, which is fine. We'll do it, but it means that I got to bring you all up to speed with Unity. All right. Guys, thank you so much. This is the lab 2, and I've recorded everything, so hopefully you'll be okay with creating it. And from a UI perspective, I will focus some more on UI. Either I'll make another recording for the end of this week, or I'll send an email giving you guys an extension. Okay, we'll see how it works. All right?
Maybe you could share the link to the YouTube videos that will be posted last semester about the different.
I know, but it's so long, and the thing is, it's not targeted, Tatiana, because there's so much. It's so different in many ways than what they're doing here. So they would have to swim through it, and I might just make videos for them. That's what I might just do. And it shouldn't be that crazy. I'm just really surprised that there's so many people that are non-gaming students, which I'm happy about. I'm really happy that you guys are here. It's just that I have to do some extra work. That's all. I'm fine with that. Thank you for letting me know that for everybody, guys. Guys, that's it for me. Devansh, do you have any questions?
I just have one question. How to attach the player to the player controllers, the controller thing?
Sorry, so let's go back in there and I'll answer your question. And for the rest, if you guys are good, thank you so much. I'll see you next week. I will send out a note for those people who are non-gaming student groups and to help you guys out. So we'll go from there. So sorry, what did you say? Are you missing?
So in the script, when I go to player, I see that controller, there is none written besides it.
This?
Oh, it's similar.
Yeah, so what I did was I added a
player.
Yeah, so I added a component. You add a component called character controller, right? And character control is built into Unity. That's what it is. Okay, so it's not my own. It's built into Unity, and all I'm doing is it's a bit of a hack because it's not. I didn't create this. I'm just using something that's built in.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions, guys, before we go? Grant. Grant, you want to go first? Yeah, we'll take Grant, then Tatiana. Go ahead, Grant.
I was wondering, for the lab submissions, do you also want a zip file with them, or just a link to the GitHub repo?
Just the GitHub
video as well.
Yeah, just the GitHub in the video.
No,
because you don't need it anymore. If you did GitHub properly, everything is good, right?
Yeah.
And I don't need anything else for now. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Grant. Tatiana, go.
Yeah, do you have time to show how to export assets?
Yes. Thank you. Yes, I do. So, so one thing you can do is you can export packages, but there's also another package you can use as well in Unity. So thank you for that. So if you go to Package Manager, right? So there is a package that we can use. It's inside of the Unity registry, right? Where you can export an FBX. It's called FBX Exporter. So it's built into Unity, right? So let's do that together. Let's install it. All right, so I'm installing the FBX Exporter. That's, again, it's part of the Unity registry for this. So there's nothing for you to do. You don't have to go anywhere to get it. It's built in, which is awesome that they added it in, to be honest. Okay. And then once we have it, we have the ability for us to export objects. So let's say, for example, I want to export the tile, this one, right? So how do I do it? So, you know, again, it's going to give us an additional, I think, menu option, if I'm not wrong. Convert FBX, to FBX prefab variant. See how you can do that, right? And I think what you can do from there is you can export to FBX. I wonder if I can just do this right now. If I go export to FBX, tile 1, and I think I can just do it by itself without doing anything else. And then I can say, here's the path. Let's put it into somewhere else other than my downloads. Let's put it into a new folder called temp. Okay, so I'm going to put it there so we can see it. And then I think for tile 1, just making sure it's good. ASCII type, that's the export format. And all levels, local pivot, animated skin mesh. I wonder if you can bring it into GitHub with this. It might have to be the binary version. Animated skin mesh, no. Reserve import settings. I think this is good. Let's click export. So let's go there, select the folder. And I wonder if, yeah, there's also binary. I recommend binary for the binary version for for Blender as an example, right? And then let's see if we can export. It looks like it worked. And let's take a look at our desktop to do that. So if we go to downloads, and if we look at temp, then we have a tile 1 FBX. Look at that, right? And let's, I'm going to close off Blender just to make sure I don't mess this up. And I'll put this Blender file up for you guys in a second. And I'll open up Blender again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to import this time. So let's exit out of this, and I'll say File, Import FBX, and then I'll select my Downloads temp folder and import. Let's see what happens. There it is. See? Okay, so that's kind of how it works, and it's pretty good, right? So, you know, again, I think that it might be, the scale might be massive. Let's see how this looks. You may have to mess with the scale a little bit, Tatiana. Yeah, because the scale looks pretty damn big. Like, you know, I want to, because example, if I was to add in a cube, just to give you the scale of what that looks like. Let's see. Oh no, it's not bad. It's not bad. That's the relative size. No, it looks good actually. It looks like it works out great.
Yeah, we changed this style in Unity, so I think it's a different dimension in Blender. It's okay.
But there you go. That's at least, yeah.
Yeah, it works. Could you show me the next class about a little bit more about Mixamo site, because I tried to download a character from it and it lost texture in Unity.
Okay, why don't I do it now for you since you're asking? So this is kind of a extra. I'm still recording, so this will be an extra, but I'll make time for you guys, no problem. So because I know that people are, you guys are all prototyping and stuff, right? So I know it's a quick thing to do. So let's go into Mixamo really quickly, and I'll do it again. I'll do this part again later on for everybody. So again, let's just log in. I know this is kind of outside of our scope for today, but it's okay. And let's use that character that I had before, the character that was the soldier. I'm going to use the soldier character. And I'm going to make an idle animation happen. So idle, right? So we can look at an idle animation first. So we can choose something that makes sense for the soldier, right? Or maybe something that looks like this more. It's kind of a soldier who's sitting around. And I find that his arms are too close together, so we can change his character arm spacing a little bit wider. Let's say 70, which will change his arms. Just kind of standing around. There we go. Not bad. It's a pretty good one. And I'll click download, and we'll download FBX for Unity. I won't do any. I'll do 60 frames per second, so pretty good one. Actually, let's go with 30 just for because it'll be too big. And I'll use a uniform keyframe reduction, so it's not so bad with the skin. Because if I do no reduction, it'll be like really big. And then if I download it, it's going to ask me where I want it to go. It takes a moment. And meanwhile, while this is going to ask me to do something, let's open up a brand new project, just so I don't mess up the other one. So in the new project, I'll make a 3D core project. And we'll go into Centennial, and we'll just go here. Just that way, we'll go here. And this way, my project we'll call this the Mixamo demo, just so that way you can see it, and that'll work while this is working. Okay, there it is. And so so this guy is a soldier. We'll say soldier idle. Soldier idle, and we'll do a we'll do one more. We'll do a soldier walk. So walk. Okay, and we'll walk in place. So kind of, so I think his arms, again, I think his arm spacing needs to be a little bit more. Probably put it at around 65. Might be too much. Because he's gonna, otherwise he's gonna hit his stuff, right? Which is kind of cool. There we go. There's his arms. And we'll download this guy again. It keeps all the same settings, and click download. All right, so that's pretty simple. And then we'll put it in the same spot. We'll just call it soldier walking. Soldier walking. And so those are two animations. So it's actually really simple if you've done this before. So, I mean, if you've done animations before. So notice that they're like 100 megs. Look how big they are. They're quite large, right? So I'm being honest, this is bigger than you can put up on GitHub without some kind of reduction. Like even that, I use 330 with uniform reduction, and it's still pretty crazy big, right? So the good thing to do is upload you want to upload a model as an example of your own, which is less complex, and then it won't be as bad. But in Unity, it'll work just great. It just won't upload to to GitHub very nicely. So what you can do with that is a couple things. One, you can zip archive it, right? So at least if you up online, if you want to maintain or save stuff, you could do that, or just ignore it, and then pass these files to your to the people that need them, right? Because they're so big, they're like 100 megs, man, because it's such a beautiful model, right? So I'm just being honest and telling you this. And then we can close this off and we can open this up, and let's just go back to Tom's 3D layout, and we'll use the simple scene because we don't care. It's just a demo, and I'll put in a plane so we can see the guy, and we will import the model. So we'll make a new folder called models. And the thing to do with this, they're kind of animations. So what you can do is you can take the folder from here and directly drag and drop right in here. So drag and drop and drag and drop. Okay. So those are bundled together with everything, and you can actually see an example of the soldier model right in here. Take a look. That's the soldier model. And in here, what you can do is you can create a material folder. So create a new folder called materials, and you would do the same thing. You would extract the materials from the soldier model. And we're not done yet. We should also do it. We should also do them in T-pose because we need that as well. So we're going to extract them there. Let's get the T-pose now. Hold on a second. Let's go back to Mixamo and just go T-pose. You need that because if you don't have T-pose, then what ends up happening is you won't have references for this guy. So T-pose is the way to go. And then download that one. Again, 30 frames per second, uniform keyframe reduction, and download. Okay, there he is. So let's just say soldier T-pose. Again, 110 meg each for these ones, pretty big. We're going to reduce them later, but for now you're going to see like as is, it's going to be too big to put up on Unity, right? So now let's take that one that we downloaded, soldier T-pose, and drag and drop that into models. And what you want to do here is like we did before, we want to go to model, because we're going to use the T-pose for everything. We're going to do model, and we're going to go to read write. We need to do that. We need to generate for colliders, I'm not sure I want to generate my colliders. I'd rather make my own because otherwise it's going to be like mesh colliders too. Like generate light map UVs, you want to do that and click apply. Cool. And then what I want to do is in the rig, notice it says animation type is generic. We want to make it humanoid. That's important. And it shows the animation here, right? So if I was to run it, you see there's no animation, right? And here are the materials. I want to extract my materials and textures. So extract materials, and we'll put it inside of assets, materials. And then we'll make a textures folder. Right, there it is. And then we'll do the same thing with our model, T-pose, extract textures. And now it says, want to make the neural maps, fix them. Good. And then what I can do is if I take this soldier into the game world, here he is in the game world, right? And let's take a look at the materials. So body, that's the top, and this one. So it looks like there are some. Yeah, they're just mixed up, right? So if I look at the model, he's using for this part, he's using a material that is 5 body and this part, but they haven't been associated with the textures, right? That's what's happened. So we need to get the diffuse and the normal and specular right. So you notice it uses specular and glossiness. And inside of my materials, we have a standard material where there's no specular and glossiness. So what you want to do is you want to hit something that's either specular setup, right? Or you may want to even try Autodesk Interactive, right? It looks like the specular setup might be better. So maybe standard specular setup. And then what you can do is you can take your textures and we can try on the diffuse what this looks like for the body. So body and then diffuse. It might be the other way around, but let's try one thing at a time. So let's go with diffuse. That looks pretty good. So this is the body. And then normal. There's the normal map. So it looks really, really good. And the specular. So the shininess. And we'll say that the smoothness is the source type is alpha, or beta alpha. I think that'll be good. I don't think I'd use the glossiness at all. That's kind of like maybe another secondary maps. I think that's probably good enough. And then what I would do is choose the other texture. So in the materials body, this is kind of like the head, I bet, and the rest of the other parts. So let's go into textures and we can go to diffuse. And we can go with
to change shader from standard to
yeah. But I don't think this is it, to be honest. I think something's missing. And again, this is kind of the stuff we have to do with models because you know, we bring them in and sometimes they work okay and sometimes they don't. Like this one's not working. We have to try it again. Because honestly, it's like we're missing like half of the textures. So like this part right here, notice that there is a and let's just make sure that this is correct. So materials, body. Yeah, I think so. I think this is the one. But let's just color it differently just so we can identify it. So I'm going to make it red. And notice that the albedo doesn't work at all. And that means that something is up with the way we've downloaded the thing. It happens like this sometimes, Tatiana, where you have to kind of bring in it again and try download it or whatever. But anyways, let's just, that looks okay. This one doesn't though. Why is it staying white? It's got oh, there it is. It's emissive. It's emissive. So, okay, so I get it. So in the textures, there is an emissive value. So I think for the other one, because there isn't emissive here, I think we need to switch again to interactive. Is there an emissive? Maybe just standard. This. A lot of times, yeah, so you have an emission, but okay, I see what they've done. Okay, sorry, I know how to fix it. Sorry. So go back to that specular setup and we turn on emissive, but then what we do is we take that emissive value and we drag and drop it into the emissive color. There we go. And that's how it works. And that's just the way, now the color is weird, but that's not because we made the color red. Yeah, we just made the color red, so we just put that back up. And now we have our model. So the first thing is making the model look kind of like what it looks like. And it's really good. Like you can see how high quality the model is. It's way too good for us. How about that? Right? For what we need. We can reduce some of these textures later on. And especially when we're, like right now, the texture quality is a 2K texture. So they're each 2.7 megabytes. Look, each one of these. So that's where a lot of the 5.3 megabytes for the normal and all this kind of stuff. So we can.
What should we do with? Should we use these guides or?
I'm fine with it.
so many memory.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with it. But what you need to do is when you go here, down in here where it says for Windows, or for if we're going to put it out to eventually to WebGL, then you can reduce this down to like 512K or 256. It won't look as good, but who cares? So example, I can select all of these, right? And then I can select Windows, override for Windows and Mac, and I can just change all of these to something much smaller, like 256 megs, and then click apply. And you're going to see that the quality goes way down. Look at that. Like it's really like fuzzy, but who cares? That just cut down, like everything is down to, 42K from like, from something like megs. It's huge.
What about mesh?
Mesh is the same. Mesh is not gonna. You can't really do much about the mesh because it's like, from a reduction perspective, there's not much you can do. A lot of it came in the form of all those textures, right? Because the textures are huge. So now let's see what we can do to make this animate, because we have T-pose, right? In T-pose, you have two things. You have an animator controller that you can make, right? So, and the great thing about this is we can copy the stuff we want and delete all the rest. So let's pull this guy into a prefab folder. So prefabs, oops, that's not what I wanted. That's so funny. I meant, I want to make a brand new folder called prefabs. And then let's take this guy and rename him to player and pull the player into the prefab folder like we did before. And now that we've got our prefab folder in here, we've got our dude, and we also have our models in here for our T-pose. But inside of T-pose, we have, look at that, we have this, and this is the clip. See this clip right here? This is what we need, actually. We also have idle. So T-pose idle. Here's the clip for idle, right? Here's the clip for idle. See that? So all I need is really these animations. So let's do that. So we'll say that assets, let's make a new folder, animations. And then in the animations folder, I want to drag and drop those things. So I want to grab this and put it in here, right? So in animations now, it grabbed the whole thing. And what I want to do is I want to unpack this. I want to bring this into Unity for a second. Don't worry about it. And I want to unpack this completely. So prefab, unpack completely. And then what I want to do is I want to grab this and bring it into our the soldier idle. I want to bring it into prefabs for a second. So bring this into prefabs, right? And then inside the prefabs folder, right? I wonder if I did this right. There is all I need is that animator piece. Let me see the model. Do I still have that? Oh, damn. It's okay. I can always re-import it. Hold on a second. Let's delete that. Yes. Yes. We don't care about that. And we don't care about this because we are just killing this thing. Kill, delete. Sorry, let's do that again. So soldier idle. There it is. And what I want to do is I want to unpack this thing because it also has a T-pose built into it. And in the animation, right, it's like I want to, it has this piece right here where I want to copy it and I want to duplicate it. Just this one piece right here, right? And I can't do this necessarily, by itself. That's T-pose, right? So I want to do the exact same thing, which you just saw, but I want to do it for idle and for walking. So again, I just go and hit on idle, Control D, to copy the idle animation, right? And when it comes to the player, you can see that the player is going to show idle. So if I press play, we should see the idle animation play if everything was well. It's not showing it very good, so that is a concern. Okay, but that's what we want to do. We want to be able to kind of drag the ones out. So let's try the walking. And again, you can't see the walking clip. It has all the information, you know, again, but this way we can get rid of it, is what I'm saying, right? Because we want to basically get rid of the walking and the thing. Let's see if we can do it anyway. Let's make an animator controller. So I don't care about soldier idle. Did I copy it in there? Do I have another one in here? I do. Let's get rid of this one. Delete. Okay. So let's make an animator controller. So we'll call this the player animator controller. Right? And then when we double click onto this, I think we can do is we can go into the models, grab the idle, and let's see if we can make this work first, just so that it goes idle right away. And then what I can do is I have the player, and I can just loop the animator controller on top of that. And yeah, thought so. Humanoid. Oh yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So that's why the problem. That's what the problem is. Okay. So let's get rid of this and go back to those models and get rid of these. I understand. Because I didn't mark them as humanoid. So I need to make this one the animation. I got to mark it as humanoid, right? Because even though it's walking, the rig is generic, and we need to make it humanoid. And the same thing goes with the T-pose is already humanoid, and the soldier needs to be humanoid as well. There we go. And I'm not optimizing anything right now. Let's see if we can do that then. So if I do Control D, that's better. Yes, it's much better. And what if I pull the player in there? Is it going to work? Yeah, it's a good preview. Look at that. That's what I want. Okay, cool. So that it works now. So because I made it humanoid. And let's do the same thing with walking. So Control D. And once I have the walking and the other one, let's pull the idle in. Good. And then we should be able to run it, and it should just work. See? Camera's in the wrong spot, but let's go. Where's the camera? Camera, plane. Camera is there. And let's put the camera in the right spot. So let's rotate the camera around. Let's move it back. Yep. And then what do you think, Tatiana? Look. So, right? And then if I want to do the same thing, if I want to do the animation, I want to transition just like we did in 2D. Let's replace the idle with walking. Now he's going to walk in place, but you can set as default. Okay, and then so you'll see he's going to be walk in place, but he's going to walk. See, but he only walks because it's not looping. So I think if we go to the walking, got a loop time on, and if we press play, that'll make him walk and loop. There we go. So it looks really good. And you know, it looks like exactly what we saw from Mixamo. It's got a good shadow and everything else. He's not falling because I put him on the ground, right? But he doesn't have a any kind of collider. I'd have to add a collider on, and I recommend like a capsule or something like that if you're going to do that. So it's pretty good in terms of now. Now, what the great thing is, we should be able to delete the walking. Delete. We should be able to delete this, and we should be able to delete the idle. And I think we have to keep the T-pose because the T-pose is our player, but we made it a prefab, yeah? So I think we can even get rid of that. Let's just make sure we can. I'm not sure if we can. Let's just override apply all for the animator. And let's just save the project. And let's take a look at the size of it because we really want to kind of do reduction here. Otherwise, we'll be in really deep trouble.
Should we have these animation clips in the model folder, like idle and
yeah, so you can move those around. Well, those are the animation clips, the walking and the idle, right? And we can move them into animation in a second. Doesn't matter where you put them. But what I'm concerned with is the size of the texture. So textures look like it's, look, the size is 107 megs. Right, look, 19, 6, 31. That's what the size is. It's all those textures. Those textures are huge, right? And that's why it's so big. It's not big because of the model. The mesh is small. It's the textures that are massive. Look at that, right? And that's what I was concerned about. I wonder if there's a way of, because I know it's going to reduce it in game, but I wonder what we need to do is we need to go from a 2K texture down to we need to go down a lot more. Jerome, I see your note. Yeah, I know. I have those too, Jerome, but I don't think it's gonna be useful. It's too much. It's not enough. It's gonna be too long for them to watch. And so yeah, so I'm wondering if that's the one thing we need to do, because there's no way. If you look at the model itself, like the model is 112 megs. Look at that, right? And I'm wondering now if we can get rid of the model because we already have a prefab. Right, so let's see what the prefab looks like, because I think once we have the prefab, we don't need the model. I think. Let's see what happens. If I die, I die, but it doesn't matter. It's a test project. Delete. Ha 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 ha. Undo. Can we undo? No. Well, that's why I tried to, try. Oh, yeah, so the avatar is missing. So that's one thing we need. I wonder if we can bring him back in. Hold on a second. Let's re-import that. The good thing is I have them, right? It's not like I deleted them from the system. I just T-pose, right? T-pose. Let's try that again. There he is. So he's back. So I wonder if, and we said that he is going to be a humanoid. And we're also going to have read write. All I need is the avatar, this thing, not the rest. So I wonder if I can control D there. That's nice. And then I think I can put him back into the player here. So do this. And now we should be able to get rid of him. Let's see. No. Undo. What else does it need from there? Let's try that again. So I want to reduce, there's ways, we'll look it up. There's a way of doing it where, so I got to put all that back. Rig, humanoid, and then animation, model. So it looks like when we brought them in, yeah, there's the avatar. So let's bring that avatar back in because that'll be the issue. But it looks like the this whole mesh. This is the mesh, right? This is the rig, and the mesh itself is here. The mesh we need too. So we need the mesh, and I think we need the avatar. So let's So that is here. Yeah. So if I do, it's pretty good. So if I do Control D, and then we use that player, put them in there instead of this one. And if I take the mesh, and if I Control D for the mesh, and I take the player and I replace the player's mesh with this one, which would be here. Let's rename it, so we'll say soldier, so we know what it is. It's ours. And let's go with this and replace it. So looks like it's good. Player's hips is this. I think maybe we can do that. Let's get rid of it now. Delete. And let's see if it runs or if it craps out. Hey, look at that. So now you have a way smaller thing. And the only thing we need to reduce is the textures. The textures are way too big because right now, even though they're showing 42K, they're not 42K. They're actually, no, we have to replace them. This is just
They
use crunch compression. I wonder if I can default to 256 and use crunch compression. Why? I don't think it modifies the original textures, unfortunately. That means you'd have to do some modification on your own, like go into the textures themselves, because that's where the texture size is. But the great thing is that they're not, no file is individually 100 megabytes. So this should work now. Right? So this should be able to load up on GitHub, because each file, it's 100 megabytes, but each file is like 19, 20, 14, 25. So it's okay. This is okay. This can work, even if you don't do texture reduction. You need to do it anyway, because you want to make sure when you're building, the build will be this really small, but the texture will start off quite big. And how bad is it? How bad is it? It's not terrible. It's not terrible. Yeah. And let's just switch. Let's take those animations from models, and let's take the animations, the walking. We'll take that and put it in animations, and we'll take this and we'll leave that in there, the soldier mesh and the soldier pose. We need those two things because those are the things that are missing. But the soldier mesh, look at that. Soldier mesh is, how big is that? Is like 5 megs. So it's not the mesh, it's the textures. Always is. That's how big it is, because the textures are so beautiful. But look, it looks great, even if it's low quality. For us, I mean, I used a very low resolution, like 256. Even if it was 512, it'd be okay. Right? So that's where the real thing is going to be with this one. And again, if you run it, it should just run fine. It just looks terrible because of I'm zoomed in, but from here it looks fine, right? Yeah. So this is recorded, Tatiana, so you can always go there and check it out and see what the thing is. But that's the way you would do it. And then look, I have all just like regular, I have all the animations like normal, the idle, the walking, whatever, and the player animated controller, and you can control it just like we did in 2D. Exactly the same. Okay?
okay.
All right, that's it. I think we did enough. And then I'll use this as a reference another time as well for you guys. But the great thing is, even in Mixamo, oh, you know what? That's one more thing I can show you. The one more thing I can show you in the Mixamo demo before we go is you can export that whole thing to an FBX if you really want to. So just like we did before, it should totally work, and you should be able to import it into things. So again, you go to your package manager, and you go to your Unity register packages when it decides to, and you go to FBX Exporter, and you install it. And once it's finished installing, you should be able to export the whole thing with its animations. Here's the player, and I should be able to go to game object, export to FBX. And then we will change it to binary, and I'll put it inside of the downloads temp folder. And let's just go with the standard stuff and go export. It's pretty quick. And we should be able to see it in here. So again, 3 megs, it's not bad. And now it doesn't include the textures because that's an FBX, right? But we should be able to go into Blender and let's get rid of the cube and the tile. And we'll do the import. So file, import FBX, and we'll look at player and import. And there they are. But they're all modified like this. That's okay. And it's the reason why it's like this is because the way that Unity does its thing. Does it have animations built in? I bet you it does. Listen. That's totally funny. It's trying to, yeah, that's funny. It's so funny. But that's the reason. So it'll export the model, but the problem is that the animations are all messed up. And also what looks to me, the model got totally twisted around. Look at that. But the better way to do that, if you're going to import the texture in the first place, is just do it from Mixamo. Because the original FBX, you can import from there. And that is level up. And I think it's soldier idle. And one day it's going to work. It's 100 megs, right? So that's the thing. It's like, it's really big. So, but it will work in Blender as well. Yeah, it's huge. But now you can see that he's got the idle animation already built in. The only thing he's missing is his textures, and there they are. You can actually bring those in too. Yep. Yeah, my house is going to burn down sometime soon. There you go. And you can even bring a model like him, Tatiana, into Mixamo and do it the other way around. You can use the rigging that's built into Mixamo to bring it back into Unity. Whenever they burn down my house. All right, that's enough. We've went an extra hour. Hopefully that helped you. Hopefully it did. I'm not sure, but you know, you should be okay now. Any questions before we go? And I'll post something for the non-gaming students. I'll have to figure out something. Thanks a lot. I'll see you. Hey, no problem. And I'll see you guys on next week, but I'll go through stuff with everybody. All right, thank you. All right, take care, guys. See you later.